Welcome back. 2021 has been a roller coaster of a year for many South Africans, faced with challenges from rising unemployment, to the increase in fuel prices and, of course, continuing Eskom load shedding. It certainly has not been any better for President Cyril Ramaphosa. He's had to answer questions on the former Minister of Health, Dr. Zweli Mkhize's resignation after being accused of involvement in the irregular Digital Vibes tender, and deal with the ongoing issue of former President Jacob Zuma's prison sentence. So how has the President performed this year? Let's unpack it for you with political analyst Levy Ndou, who joins us via our video link this morning. Levy, it's great to talk to you on the AM Report on this New Year's Eve. It's that time of the year, isn't it, when we all take stock of the year we've had, and as a country, when we take a look at the performance of our President in 2021. What stands out for you, Levy, in terms of, shall we begin with the positives for 2021 for the President?
Good morning, Michelle. Good morning to the viewers at home. Indeed, this is the last day of the year, and of course we need to look back at what has happened and maybe in an attempt to shape the future for the better. And I think what has been going on politically, specifically with the presidency, the same frustrations that ordinary citizens have been going through, I think are the same frustrations that the president and his leadership also went through. We had the extension of the lockdown regulations. 2021, the entire nation has been on different levels of the lockdown. And that had a huge impact on the economy, on the creation of jobs, and on the normal lives that ordinary citizens are supposed to go through. And that, of course, disturbed a lot the functioning of government. Even though the government, or those that are at the level of government, will say there are no financial resources, a lot of resources have been channeled towards the poor, the vulnerable, and especially those who couldn't cope with COVID-19 regulations. But very painful is that with the message that Ramaphosa had when he came into power, you still have elements of corruption, especially on the money that is directed towards serving the interest of the poor. And that, for me, is one area that is quite frustrating on the part of the presidency and the government. Another aspect for me that seemed to have been a big challenge in South Africa is that our economy has not been doing well, and when it comes to unemployment, especially to young people, the numbers have been rising and rising, and that has been a huge negative on the part of the government led by Ramaphosa.
You know, you talk about unemployment numbers, Levy. I mean, they reached record highs in the year of 2021. It's the big failure. If we think about our economy and the performance of our economy, how we've been able to bounce back, or how we've struggled to bounce back from the effects of COVID-19 as well, the unemployment numbers and the impact on the country's youth must certainly be at the very top of that list of our government's failures this year.
Well, indeed, and one would require or expect government to be able to come with very strong strategies to address this matter. Remember, when we say we are building for the future, our focus has to be on the youth, and our youth should also be able to see the future at the end of the tunnel. And unfortunately, that does not seem to be the case. But I think also, government in South Africa has got very good strategies and very good policies that are meant to address these issues. And one of the challenges, in my view, is that it appears as if wrong people are being placed in certain state departments, which actually, at the end of the day, frustrates the programs of the same government. Who would forget that our own state entities are collapsing, whilst we've got the government that is supposed to take care of these state entities? And if we have to gauge the performance of government, we also have to look at the state-owned entities, how they are performing, and the strategies that government has actually adopted to address the challenges facing those state entities. And that does not seem to be the case, unfortunately, especially when you look at Eskom and when you look at SAA and other state entities that we have in South Africa.
Levy, when you think about how South Africans perceive the performance of President Cyril Ramaphosa and of his government, you know, something comes to mind. Just a few weeks ago when South Africa was placed on the UK's travel red list, just ahead of the festive season. It was a massive blow to our own hospitality industry because they were hoping that this festive season they would be able to at least try to claw back some of the losses that they've had to deal with over the period of COVID-19. The President himself had, as that red list announcement was made, had embarked, if I remember correctly, on a four-nation West African tour, which took him out of the country for some time. You know, what's the optics of that kind of situation, Levy, where there is this massive decision that is being made that affects South Africa quite greatly in terms of specifically our economic recovery, but the President is outside of our borders?
Well, I think one must appreciate the energy and the zeal on the part of the President to make a difference for South Africa. One must also appreciate the fact that President Ramaphosa would come with very bold statements that are supposed to make a difference in the people's lives. But I think what will remain a challenge is as to whether some of the people that he has assembled in his team also share in his own vision. Because there are instances where it appears as if those that are in government don't seem to be sharing the very same vision that is being shared by the President. How many instances where we have had ministers in government contradicting each other on crucial issues? That has been the point. But I think at the same time, you need a change of mindset, not only on the part of the President and cabinet. You need a mindset from ordinary citizens who are in the public service. You need a change of mindset from ordinary citizens who are in the private sector, who would actually on a daily basis say, today as I go to work, I need to make a difference that will make our lives better for everybody, including those that are not given any form of responsibility. And I think you also need the Presidency to, at some point, take bold steps, especially in terms of replacing those that do not seem to be performing as expected. And unfortunately, as you know, the issues within the ANC, the President has to be very careful in whatever decision that he takes, because the fractured ANC that has got different groupings also has to be maintained or has to be put in cohesion so that the government has to work properly. And that still don't seem to be working.
So you've brought up the ANC, Levy, and I want to hone in on the party's issues that it's encountered in 2021. Of course, now heading into the new year, the issue of ANC staff salaries as yet unresolved, a massive blight on the name of the African National Congress.
You need the ANC that is able to make their staff happy, and then they'll be able to work whilst they are happy and ensure that the policies of the ANC are actually being implemented. If the ANC is not able to take care of their own staff, one would question whether the ANC is then able to take care of the entire South African population. We know that there are financial challenges everywhere, but one would have expected the party that is in government to do better so that this party is seen to be leading or to be at the forefront of ensuring that the rights and the concerns of the vulnerable and the workers are being taken care of. Each time, unfortunately, there are a lot of promises for the staff to get their salaries, and unfortunately that is not the case. one would expect the ANC to do better so that as they approach 2022, they approach it on a very positive note.
Levy, I don't think that you and I have enough time to deal with some of the challenges that we've encountered in our country in 2021. There are many of them, but certainly one that does also stand out is the July unrest in the country, or at least in parts of Gauteng and in KZN as well.
Who would love to remember the July unrest? Because I think that is the moment where our government was quite exposed. And the July unrest for me raises a number of questions. They raise questions that relate to our own safety. They raise questions that relate to the cohesion within government. They also raise questions that relate to our own state security, how they're actually functioning. But more importantly, it is about the people that are given such responsibilities that do not seem to be matching the challenges that are actually coming into South Africa. The events of July are the events that are going to be recorded in the history of our nation as one of the shameful events that one never want to think about, because our government was indeed exposed. But I think what one would expect would be for the government to be sitting down, especially the ministers and senior public servants, to say, what plans do we have if something like that would happen in the future? And South Africans would indeed expect better from our government.
Our local government elections 2021 levy, it's given us some newcomers to our election landscape and to our political landscape, some newcomers who performed incredibly well, and of course I'm thinking of Herman Mashaba's Action SA here. It's given our bigger political parties perhaps something to think about for the next national election.
Yes, indeed. I think for me, our local government elections were a pace setter for what we should expect in 2024. But I think everybody who has been looking at the trends with our elections has been expecting. The ANC has been going down for some time, and of course, political parties have to take advantage of the ANC that is actually going down and having known its own challenges. The opposition parties, because they knew that the ANC has got issues that relates to factionalism, the opposition also knew that the ANC does not have money. The opposition also knew that it is easy for anybody to become a councillor in the ANC, and they actually wanted to capitalize on that. And I think also the opposition actually achieved partially what they wanted to do. The plan of the opposition is to dislocate the ANC and ensure that they do not get the majority. The ANC is aware that if they don't put their house in order, if they continue with factionalism, if they continue with corruption, if they continue with public service delivery, that is exactly where the opposition has to come in. One must also acknowledge the presence of Action SA, that they came in a very, very short space of time, and they made a huge impact in the South African politics at local government sphere. The challenges that seem to be there with Action SA of some members who are not happy, it will require the leadership of Action SA to sit down with their members and make them understand where they are politically and the impact that coalition government has. Because if you get into a coalition or in any form of agreement, indeed you have to sacrifice some of your members in order to ensure that the coalition functions and it functions properly.
What a year it's been for our country, and the scorecard for President Cyril Ramaphosa, there are still very many points that need to be unpacked as we head into 2022. Levy Ndou, let me thank you for your time this morning. He's a political analyst, just trying to help us understand some of the big events of the year that no doubt will continue to shape our country.